Hey everyone, I'm Zach. Welcome back to Stories by the Cup. Today, we're spending some time with Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. We'll start with a spoiler-free introduction, what it's about, who might enjoy it, and why I was excited to pick it up. Then we'll dive into my reflections on what stayed with me, what surprised me, and what I can't stop thinking about. So, let's make a cup of coffee and settle in. Now, before we turn the page, stick around for a spoiler-free section on what Shadows of Self is all about. This is a book about a lawman named Waxilliam Landrian. This is the second book in a series known as the Wax and Wayne series. This story, unlike the first, has a bit of a darker tone to it. We get into a little bit more of the politics of the city, getting to learn a lot more about the characters and some of the hardships that they face and the trauma that they carry with them. Things feel more tense, and this tensity leads to more desperation and a much more action-filled book. It's a bit of a page-turner, if you will, where we follow the characters from one issue to the next in slowly piecing together a very dark mystery. If you like detective stories, you'll love following Wax and Wayne, as they are akin to a Sherlock Holmes and Watson sort of vibe, as these two hunt for a very intelligent and elusive serial killer throughout the city of Allendale. It's a mystery thriller with high stakes, action-packed, and emotional character arcs. The twist at the end is well worth it. Brandon Sanderson is a master in coming up with twists that you never see coming. If this interests you, I encourage you to read it. It is well worth it. From this point on, we'll be talking openly about the story. So if you haven't finished the book yet, this is a great place to pause. I'd love for you to come back once you've turned that last page and share your thoughts with me. And with that, it's a kind of cozy rainy day today, so if you're watching this during a rainy day, I hope you have a nice warm beverage to keep you heated up. I love the rain, I love the smell of it, and it's just a cozy vibe here, so I hope you guys have a little cozy spot for yourself. Let's dive in. Coming off of Book 1, The Alloy of Law, Shadows of Self had a lot that I was looking forward to. I mentioned in the first video, Wax choosing Steris over Maracy is a very interesting choice, a very bold choice, and a choice that I was looking forward to. It deviates from the natural happily ever after storyline between the two characters that you think should immediately be together, and Steris is absolutely one of my favorite characters in this story. We'll get more onto that in a minute, but coming back to it in Book 2, the world is just amazing. Getting to see this kind of industrialized revolution world as they're getting into more technology, building up cities bigger, and getting to see Allomancy in this state is really fun. And Brandon Sanderson does a really great job always adding to it. Allomancy never stays exactly the way it was before. There's always some new mechanism or weapon that is being added each time. And Wax as a character brilliantly uses his allomancy to the best of his abilities. He's not a full-on Mistborn. He only has steel pushing and then his metal mines for his weights, and it creates a very interesting dynamic between him and Wayne and the way they go about using their powers in this world. In this story, the atmosphere starts off a little bit more tense once we get past the prologue, where we learn a little bit more about how Wax met Lessie, who, if you all don't remember, Lessie is Wax's late wife, who met her and in the roughs and kind of triggered Wax coming back to the city. Things in the city are more tense. People are unhappy. There's worker wage strikes. There's a governor who doesn't seem to be really connecting with the people or giving them anything or even talking about what they want, what the problems are. This is kind of seen from both Wax and Maricy's perspective. Even Wayne, when he goes around and puts on different outfits and tries to embody what other people are thinking and feeling, he notices it too. There's also mentions early on of the potential for the return of hemalurgy, which is, calling back to the original Mistborn series. Hemalurgy was part of destruction, and in order to use hemalurgy, which is the spikes, you have to essentially sacrifice somebody in order to empower and imbue these spikes with the power of the person you're sacrificing. So there's mentions that hemalurgy might be coming back, and there's concerns over that. So overall, we're in a much, I'd say, darker, intenser atmosphere at the beginning of this and throughout the whole story. We also get to see early on bits of Wayne's backstory. We knew in book 1 there was, and I don't fully remember if it was totally revealed what had happened, but in book 2 we get into it a little bit more. We see Wayne going to the young lady Elendry, who is the daughter of a man he didn't intentionally kill in the roughs. Wayne was essentially trying to rob a man, and when the man kind of put up a fight, Wayne had a gun pointed at him and it went off and took the man's life. Wayne deeply regrets this. Once a month he goes to Elendry and gives her money, and he goes through this whole kind of ritual for it where he is pretty much inviting her to make him suffer. He very much is not necessarily like enjoying it, but he believes he deserves it. And so truly he is inviting her to do it. He goes to her once a month knowing she doesn't really want to see him. And every time he goes to her, she shows him a picture of her father and says, "You took him from me." Wayne not only regrets the actions that he took in the past, but he is kind of letting them define him right now. He doesn't believe he's a worthwhile person. He doesn't believe that he's even capable of being a hero. He sees himself in very much a negative light, and Wax sees that and is concerned, and they have a conversation early on, and Wayne just comes out and asks Wax why Wayne didn't kill him. Why, of all the people that they have brought to justice, why Wayne didn't kill him when there are so many others that have been killed. And Wayne just tells him he didn't see him as a threat. He didn't make a habit of killing, or he doesn't make a habit of shooting those who can't shoot back. And ever since then, Wayne, whether more for choosing not to use guns or just can't, anytime someone tries to even hand him a gun, his hands get shaky. And that certainly could be from his trauma. And I also think that's from his choice of, I don't want to ever kill someone again, so I am not going to pick up a gun. As I mentioned, Steris is absolutely one of my favorite characters now, without a doubt. She and Wax's relationship in this starts to grow, and we start to see his choice really coming into effect. There's not a whole lot of Steris in this story. She's very much present in the beginning, and I'll talk about the end, which is where I really connected with Steris and saw something in Steris that I really appreciate. But we see more of Steris making an effort to be closer to Wax. They're not, in love with each other. They're more doing this for their households. Wax is surprised by Steris during a party that they attend. It was actually really Steris's idea to attend this party because she knew the governor would be attending this party, and Wax was concerned that there might be another assassination attempt on the governor. Wax was really surprised by Steris and how well put together she was, how well she knew all the other houses, their current political stance, where they are, even in just their own household dealings, commonwealth, their relationships to one another. And with her help, he is able to fit in a little bit more than he would have. Wax really doesn't like the politics side of household. It's part of the reason why he was looking to marry so quickly, is he needed someone to kind of take more of that side of things. But Steris is really knowledgeable. She preps, she gets notes ready, and Wax is pleasantly surprised by her. Of course, Wax's decision to stay with Steris rather than choosing Marcy is not too happy with. Partly because Wax is so hard on Marcy. During the first chase scene, Marcy's doing just fine. She's driving the car. She's keeping up with the criminal that they're chasing. But Wax is complaining about the car, complaining about her being there, complaining that she would choose to choose to become a constable rather than remain as essentially a lawyer and keep studying law. Whether Wax is doing this because he's trying to distance himself from her, I don't quite get that vibe, but the way Marcy sees it is Wax is unhappy with his decision, unhappy with his life, and she's kind of upset with him that he didn't choose her. It's interesting to see this dynamic. They're still trying to get along with one another. Eventually, there's more mystery and intrigue in what's happening. Someone trying to target the governor. Someone's trying to get the people of Lendel to divide amongst each other, to start riots, to start fighting. This turmoil that's going on in the city is not solely from their government kind of failing them. Harmony eventually reaches out to Wax through one of the Kandra, and Wax is able to communicate with him while he has an earring in his ear. And Harmony basically tells him they have essentially a rogue Kandra. The Kandra's name is Pam, and they are only inserting one spike into themselves, enough to keep their physical form and not revert to a mist wraith, but not enough for Harmony to have any influence over them. And Harmony is worried because they don't know what they're exactly trying to do. They know they're trying to hurt Harmony in some way, hurt the people of this world. Harmony had to come tell Wax in general what to be looking for, send some help to him, because hunting down a Kandra was not going to be easy. And Wax is not very used to Kandra at all, if ever having any experience with them before this. Harmony essentially sending help and pushing Wax in this direction, which is the biggest part of this story that I want to talk about. It's the moment that really has stuck with me ever since finishing this book, and the thing that I just can't stop thinking about. Eventually, Wax catches up to Pam, gets her into a position where she is essentially dying. Wax really didn't have any other choice to stop her. She would have continued no matter what. And as she lay there dying, she reveals who she actually is to Wax. And it turns out that Pam is Leslie. Losing someone you love once is already hard enough, and then to have to lose them again. We already saw what that did to Wax once, and clearly he's never fully overcome his grief for Leslie. He never really faced it and processed it. There were many times throughout this that he was getting glimpses of his past. Even in book 1, he was seeing flashbacks and hesitating. Every decision he makes, he questions, because he questions if he's really doing the right thing and if it's going to save people's lives. Though it's not directly his fault that Leslie is dying, it's once again him who essentially made the killing shot. Of course, Wax being Wax is blaming himself once again for this situation. The difference this time is that Steris is there. After Leslie dies for real this time, there's a party to celebrate essentially saving the city. Not everybody knows the circumstances of what happened, but all of Wax's closest friends and allies are at this party, and they know. Even Wayne comes up to Wax during the party and, says he's sorry and, there for him and all that sort of things. Marcy stops by, a couple others. But Wax doesn't really respond. He doesn't really talk to them. He's not in a party mood for sure. Eventually, after the party ends and people are gone, Wax feels alone. However, he's not alone. Steris stayed by his side throughout the whole party, and she throws another log onto the fire and scoots her chair closer to him. And she places her hand on top of his. Wax doesn't feel the warmth from the fire. He feels the warmth from her hand. She doesn't say anything to him, and he doesn't need her to. And he begins to weep. Such a powerful moment in a book, one that I wasn't really expecting. Needless to say, it made me cry. And it wasn't just a sad cry, it was really a happy cry. Steris is amazing. For not really knowing Wax for so long, it felt like she understood him better than some of his closest friends, even Wayne. She knew him well enough to simply be there for him, that nothing she said could really help him, but he needed his space, and he needed a safe space to feel like he could grieve so that he could process it in his own terms, which I don't think he ever really had the full support of that. And don't get me wrong, Wayne is a great friend, but Wayne is dealing with his own things, and he really only sees Wax as a hero, someone who can't really be hurt. Of course, Wayne understands that losing his wife, he himself also liked. He was friends with Leslie too. Knowing Wax is in pain, he just doesn't know what to do for him there. Steris, on the other hand, just simply showed up, sat there quietly, and showed him she supports him and is there for him. And that's all he needed. The main characters in this story are going through struggles with their own self-worth and forgiveness. Not necessarily forgiveness from others, but forgiveness for themselves, for their mistakes, or even for who they are. They're all still growing, trying to figure things out in a world that is becoming more complicated. And this dark, tense atmosphere with the Khandra and Harmony being involved and trying to cause mass panic and chaos throughout the city to try to get them to riot and essentially destroy themselves. That just adds to things in an already complex and trying world. If we look at Steris, for example, when Wax and Steris are at the party at the beginning of the book, trying to find out who Palm is, where and when they're going to strike next, Wax gives chase to who he thinks Palm was at that time and leaves Steris behind. Steris finds Wayne outside in the courtyard and asks him if this is how it is with Wax, where she'll always be kind of left behind and wanting to be a part of his world, but not quite always a part of his world. Wayne is Wayne and doesn't really like Steris. He doesn't really see her the way that we're getting to see her. He's a little rude. I can't quite blame him. I wish he wasn't as rude, but he's going through his own things. And even for him, Wayne is looking for his own suffering. He wants Alendri to make him suffer. He wants to suffer for the actions of his past. He doesn't think that anything he does makes up for it, and he certainly doesn't believe that he's a hero like Wax is, even though he and Wax are the ones that go around in the roughs, bringing all these criminals to justice, stopping people from doing bad things. Wayne does not see himself as the hero. He sees Wax as the hero, and himself, he just sees as somebody unworthy. Marcy is also struggling. She is constantly trying to prove herself, which is not inherently a bad thing, but she compares herself too much to Wax. She essentially wants to be what he is, wants to be this legendary figure, this hero who takes down bad guys, who has these incredible powers. She's just simply not, and she's trying to be something she can't be. But she compares herself to him, and anything that she gets for herself, she believes is because of her association with Wax and by Wax's merit that she is in the position that she's in. And of course, Wax is struggling. He's no different than any of the others. He struggles with his decisions, the things that he tries to do his best, but oftentimes questions. Wax struggles with his own self-image as well. He's no different than any of the others. He struggles with decision-making because of his past mistakes, just like Wayne. However, he's much more critical of himself because he's always trying to help people, and he gets in the moment and sometimes will freeze up, and it costs him. He also blames himself for things that truly aren't his fault, such as Leslie's death, not knowing that Pom was Leslie. And he struggles with his own self-identity. He struggles to be the lawman, to be the lord of the house, to be with Steris, to be really anything. He thinks all of these things are individual things all on their own, and he can't be all of them at once. He has to choose who he has to be. And so he struggles, just as anybody else does. Because Harmony didn't disclose to Wax who Pom really was, Wax is rightfully so angry. I would be in that situation, and I think Wax should be. But to Wax, it's also his faith coming into question. I think he's starting to wonder, is the path he on one he chose for himself, or just one that Harmony has guided him on? And this doesn't really help with his whole decision-making issue, because he was already struggling with that, and this is really just compounding on top of that. In this story, Steris truly becomes my favorite character because of what she did for Wax at the end, who she is. She is the kind of person that I see in my wife, where if I'm struggling with something, she knows me well enough that there are just sometimes you just can't talk to somebody. There are people in the world that are fixers that want to help and want to do everything that they can, and that's a great sentiment. But there are just some situations where words or actions don't necessarily do anything. But in those situations, being there for somebody, waiting for them quietly, and just showing them that you care. All Steris did was put her hand on top of his, and that was enough for Wax to feel like he was in a safe place and allow him to grieve in his own way. I've had moments in my life like that, and my wife was there for me like Steris was for Wax. The first time Wax went through Leslie's death was a hard thing that no one should ever have to go through, and to have to go through it twice, I can't imagine how he must feel. I'm glad Steris is there for him, and I look forward to seeing how their relationship grows in the next book, and I look forward to seeing how this time maybe Wax can truly recover from that moment. I think there's an aspect of it tied to Harmony, though, and his faith, and I wonder if they'll be able to reconcile. I think right now Wax certainly doesn't want to, and it's hard to know what Harmony's thinking in this moment. But I look forward to maybe getting these answers in the next book. These were my thoughts on Shadows of Self. Thank you for spending some time with me today. And if you've read the book, I'd love to know what your thoughts were. Did anything I say today resonate with you? Please leave a comment below. And until next time, I'll have a warm cup of coffee waiting for you and another story to share.